national anthem as we pay respect to our nation and its enduring values. Heads for a prayer, seeking wisdom, guidance, and prosperity for our nation and its people.
Let us pray. Eternal God and Heavenly Father, we thank you for this another beautiful day in the Federation of St. Christopher and Nevis. We thank you, dear God, for its people. We thank you for the resources that you have given unto us. And even at this time, as we are here to even celebrate and as we observe International Corruption Day, I say, Lord, your blessings upon us. We pray, dear God, that as we discuss, as we deliberate, we ask, dear Lord, for your wisdom, your guidance, your strength into accomplishing the people's tasks. And we thank you and we give you praise. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Well, we've just lost audio on the feed from ZIZ. I was just told that they're working on the audio issues on their end.
Reverend Bishop Cyprian Williams, Ombudsman Information Commissioner. We apologize for the delayed arrival of our two division counterparts, Ricardo Keynes, Chairperson of the Nevis Integrity Commission, and Sidney Newton, Commissioner of the Nevis Integrity Commission, who is expected to join us shortly. We now direct our attention to a special message from our Federal Integrity Commission highlighting the vital role of anti-corruption measures in our nation's governance.
Good day to the listening and viewing audience. On Saturday, December 9th, the Integrity Commission and the global community will join with the United Nations in commemorating International Anti-Corruption Day 2023 under the theme, Uniting the World Against Corruption for Development, Peace, and Security. The Integrity Commission has adopted that theme. Like the United Nations, we recognize that corruption is an obstacle and a threat to national security, peace, and development, and we too envisage a world united against corruption. The UN's theme for this year, aligns with that of last year when the United Nations began efforts to mark its 20th anniversary of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, culminating with International Anti-Corruption Day 2023. It was in the year 2003 when the first International Anti-Corruption Day was observed, the year when the United Nations General Assembly approved the convention and designated a special day against corruption. Over the past 3 years, our Integrity Commission has been playing its part in our little corner of the world. Our efforts have included presentations to various primary schools. We have held an essay competition where Kianje Paul and Tahiyat Shai of the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College placed first and second respectively, and Denise Rollins of the Washington Archibald High School placed third. Notably, each student received a monetary award at a ceremony held at ZIZ Studios in the presence of parents and teachers. Additionally, we have distributed leaflets, brochures, etc., held a panel discussion on the topic, "Corruption begets more corruption and fosters a corrosive culture of impunity." We have delivered the International Anti-Corruption Day messages, all part of our public awareness campaign against corruption. Significantly, we successfully hosted the 8th Annual Regional Conference of the Commonwealth Caribbean Association of Integrity Commissioners and Anti-Corruption Bodies at the St. Kitts Marriott Hotel. And from all reports, we raised the bar in this regard. Notably, a major step forward has been the government's strengthening of the anti-corruption legal framework, which, among other things, enables the Commission to carry out core functions, including receiving from public officials declarations of assets, income and liabilities, and investigating allegations of bribery and acts of corruption. This year, we continue to play our part by, among other things, making a presentation to gazetted officers of the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. This we did on Tuesday, 5th December. We were well received, and the officers were quite participative and interactive, especially in relation to the case studies discussed. We recognized that the police have a role to play in preventing, curbing, and eradicating corruption. Additionally, they fall under the Ministry of National Security. As such, they are called upon to protect citizens and residents and to maintain peace, law, and order, all of which tie in nicely with the theme for this year. As we, the Integrity Commission, recommit ourselves to this very important issue of raising awareness about corruption and its negative effects on societies around the world, we ask you, the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, to lend your voice to the cause. It is your right, it is your role, it is your duty to do the right thing and say no to corruption. Guard your integrity valiantly to secure the future of our country for the benefit of our children, even those yet to be born, and our fellow citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. Happy International Anti-Corruption Day 2023. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Justice Lance. We now I invite our esteemed Attorney General, the Honorable Garth Winkin, to deliver his message reflecting on our nation's dedication to combating corruption and ensuring good governance, and this too will be played on screen.
Fellow Kittians and Divisions, home and abroad, and all persons who choose our beloved Federation to be your home. On December 9, 2023, we join with the international community of responsible nations in observing International Anti-Corruption Day. As we observe this solemn occasion, I stand before you to reflect on the negative impact of corruption, the crucial importance of eradicating it, and the strides our nation has taken in the past few months in the relentless fight against this pervasive menace. Corruption, in all its forms, inflicts severe harm upon our society. It undermines the very fabric of justice, hampers economic progress, and erodes public trust in our institutions. The corrosive effects of corruption spare no one, threatening the well-being of our citizens and the sustainable future of our beloved Federation. Eradicating corruption is not merely an ethical imperative, but a pragmatic necessity. It is a commitment to justice, fairness, and the prosperity of our nation. Corruption siphons resources away from critical sectors, hindering our ability to provide essential services, promote economic growth, and invest in the well-being of our people. A corrupt society breeds inequality, obstructs opportunities for the vulnerable, and fetters the dreams and aspirations of our youth. Therefore, the eradication of corruption is a collective responsibility, a shared commitment to building a St. Kitts and Nevis where every citizen can thrive without fear or favor. After all, as it is said in our Constitution, we are people who desire the creation of a climate of economic well-being in the context of respect for law and order. In our unwavering pursuit of a corruption-free future, St. Kitts and Nevis has embarked on a comprehensive legal reform journey. Our Federation proudly joins our trustworthy colleagues in the international community to stand united against corruption, with a formidable arsenal of legislative measures aimed at safeguarding the integrity of our institutions. Our new Anti-Corruption Act, brought into force on December 8, 2023, establishes specific and wide-ranging corruption offences and clearly delineates what actions will no longer be tolerated by senior government officials, the public service, state entity employees, and public sector contractors. The Act also creates the Office of the Special Prosecutor to monitor and investigate reported corrupt activities in government. This year, we amended and fully operationalized our Integrity in Public Life Act to require high-level public officials to disclose their assets, liabilities, and income annually. This transparency measure, overseen by the Integrity Commission, reinforces our commitment to public office accountability. The Freedom of Information Act, also amended and activated this year, empowers the public and press to access non-confidential government information, promoting transparency and removing the widely perceived cloak of public sector secrecy. Delegated information officers in each ministry will facilitate this access, marking a significant step towards openness in government. The brand new Whistleblower Protection Act 2023, also brought into force on December 8th, acknowledges the vital role of whistleblowers and acts as a shield to those who expose corrupt activities within the public service. It therefore complements the Anti-Corruption Act, giving teeth to our fight against corruption. And lastly, but not by any means the least, the Unauthorized Disclosure of Official Information Act 2023 creates a robust legal framework to prevent the unauthorized leaks of sensitive, confidential, and privileged government information, ensuring that the proper avenue to government information is through the mechanisms of the Freedom of Information Act. Just as corrupt persons can give benefits or contracts to illicit actors, so can corrupt persons leak confidential state information to criminals and terrorists for a fee. This act aims to close that illegal and corruptible backdoor. We've been working hard as an executive and legislature since August 2022 to create strong laws that will stand the test of time in eradicating the culture of corruption that was saturating our society. Therefore, it is no surprise that this year's theme, Uniting the World Against Corruption, resonates deeply with and mirrors our aspirations. St. Nevis proudly stands among the nations committed to this global mission. By fostering transparency, fortifying our institutions, and empowering our citizens, we contribute to the international effort against corruption. As Attorney General, I urge every citizen to join hands in this noble cause. Let us unite against corruption, for in our solidarity lies the strength to build a nation free from the shackles of corruption, a nation where justice prevails, opportunities abound, and the flame of hope burns bright. May we continue this journey towards a sustainable island state together, resolute in our commitment to a corruption-free St. Kitts and Nevis. May God bless you. Happy International Anti-Corruption Day.
So the broadcast continues. There seems to be a pause following the AG's words, so we await the continuation of the good governance transformation broadcast. We're simulcasting this from ZIZ Radio and TV. So in the meantime, until they resume. Of course, you can watch this on YouTube, the WINFM's YouTube channel, X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, and we await the resumption of the broadcast. They've just got the artwork up at the moment, in case you're wondering what's going on. (10:34). We just heard words from the Attorney General Garth Wilkin as the Good Governance Transformation broadcast continues. It's in celebration of International Anti-Corruption Day 2023. And no worries, the broadcast is not ended. I'm assuming they're getting their ducks in a row for the next. Here we go. Okay, the Attorney General is speaking, but there is no audio. So we're hoping that someone is monitoring on the ZIZ end and someone would notify them that there's no audio at the moment. The Attorney General is speaking once again, and there is no audio.
If the work becomes too much for one man, to install a dedicated information commissioner. The Ombudsman can also receive reports Attorney
Just to inform our listeners that the audio issues have nothing to do with WINNFM. This is
corrupt conduct to the special prosecutor.
broadcast, and we are bringing this broadcast from
Good people are needed to enforce good governance laws. And I believe everyone at the head table understands the important statutory and constitutional duties to preserve the integrity of our nation and create strong institutions that can stand the test of time. It doesn't make sense to implement laws unless institutions are created that outlast people. The 5 legislative pillars of our good governance transformation collectively signify a paradigm shift in our approach to governance. They were meticulously crafted and amended by the AGOT after widespread consultation with the Integrity Commissioners, with the Bar Association, with the general public. They were then debated thoroughly in Parliament and encapsulate the essence of this Labour Party administration's commitment to transparency, accountability, and ethical conduct in government, not just for now, but for eternity. As we embrace these pillars, we affirm our collective resolve to build a sustainable island state. These actions by a responsible government solidify our dedication to sculpting a political landscape marked by leadership, integrity, and a commitment to the common good. The journey towards a sustainable island state is not an easy one. It's a journey that must be undertaken. The 5 legislative pillars that we written are not just laws. They are testament to our collective vision for a future where the principles of good governance are etched into the very soul of our nation. May these legislative pillars guide us, protect us, and lead us towards a brighter, more sustainable future for St. Kitts and Nevis. Now, members of the press, it's time for your questions. They can be directed to me and then assigned to any of the individuals at the head table that are more appropriate to answer. It's an open mic. Let's get you on mic, Mr. Man. Good morning to all. Please say your name and your news house, because it's on radio as well.
Yes, Glenbert, SKN Newsline. The matter of the Freedom of Information Act for most of the media houses, we have been trying to access an actual copy of it, either electronically or physically, and we have been unable to do so. What is the situation in terms of getting that act in our hands? I see that the website is not completely updated, and I also talking about
Is the amendment or the act itself?
the actual amendment.
The amendment was actually gazetted today, so you have options to get it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to arrange for SKNIS to publish all of them today on SKN's IS's social media and website. They'll be available for collection at the Gazette office today as well, if you want a physical copy. The bill, which was amended in Parliament, was made available to the public. So naturally, what's going to happen now that they have been gazetted, they will be uploaded to lawcommission.gov.kn. So you'll be able to find the original act, which was passed in 2018, as well as the amendment on that website. We don't administer it from St. Kitts, it's administered from Anguilla. But so there's a slight delay in the documents being uploaded, but it should be up within the next couple of weeks. But I'll get SKNS to publish it so you can have a copy too.
And one other thing, with regards to the submission of all the necessary financial information from ministers of government and other public servants, have everyone submitted their reports, and if they were late, someone late, what were the penalties for this?
I'll direct that question to Justice Hands and Commissioner Knight.
Can you repeat the question?
My question is for persons, for ministers of government who are to submit their financial statements with regards to
integrity in public data.
Yeah, that's right. And other government officials have everyone submitted based on the deadlines that they would submit, and they will need
The deadline. In relation to your question as to whether all the ministers have filed, most of them have done so. Parliamentarians were the first to file, and as I said before, most of them have done so. And the penalty, I should say, is it $30,000 or 5 years imprisonment? 3 years, I think it was amended to 3 years. 3 years imprisonment. So that is the penalty. But that would be after a chain of events have occurred. It doesn't happen just like that. At some point, we in the office have done certain things, and eventually, depending on the results of what we have done, we will have to refer these matters or defaulters to the Director of Public Prosecutions for him to take necessary action in terms of prosecution.
May I also speak to that issue? Adlai Smith, Director of Public Prosecutions. I took up this office on the 6th of October 2023. Within the first 2 weeks, I made it my mission to see or have meetings with key stakeholders in the justice system here. And one of those would have been the head of the Integrity Commission. I made it a point to have a personal meeting, and I sat down basically to ascertain the problems with the functioning of the organization. And in particular, I inquired about this issue of declarations. I won't go into every single discussion, but I will say this. I understand that the deadline had passed since the 31st of July of this year. I said, I don't want it to be a situation whereby, we don't have some sensitivity, because I understand there was some issue with respect to the information in the document. So the decision was taken that the chairman would write to supervisors and persons who are the subject of the obligation to furnish information under the Act. They were given a deadline of December 1st to file. If they don't file by that time, the names may be handed over to the Director of Public Prosecutions. I must say, I won't say what the figure is, but I was not satisfied with the level of compliance when I had the meeting the first time. It was less than 1/5, I think. I don't know what the figure is now. As Director of Public Prosecutions, I too am subject to this particular obligation. Even though I have 100 days within to file from the 6th of October, I said it wouldn't make no sense coming here and saying, preaching about filing obligations, and I haven't filed. So on the deadline, I filed well in advance. And I inquired, have there been filings? There are persons who are outstanding. I said, oh. I've asked the Commission to furnish me with the names of those persons. And when those names are furnished, it's just a matter of putting in the names of the individuals into the charges, which I've already drafted. I'm not playing. I took a screenshot from my computer this morning. To give you an idea what the charge sounds like. See, the AG said that persons at this table understand what their responsibility is with respect to the legislation. I understand my role, and I have a key role to play in the enforcement of the Integrity and Public Life Act. The first charge, failure to furnish information, and it would read like this: dash whoever the name is. And the thing is, the beauty, I don't know anybody here, so nobody can say that I'm showing favoritism or anything, whether one party or otherwise or whatever. Blank. Between 31st day of July and dash day, being a public official, did fail without reasonable cause to furnish to the Integrity Commission a declaration which he or she is required to furnish in accordance with the provisions of the Integrity and Public Life Act, contrary to Section 31(1) of the Integrity and Public Life Act, Cap 22(1)(8) of the laws of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. For those persons who have been asked by the Commission to submit those names of persons who are supposed to be filing and didn't do so, you could be charged either with aiding and abetting under subsection 2 of the section, or if we're trying to find the names now, if you haven't filed them, and you fail to produce the information, we'll charge you with accessory after the fact to failure to furnish information. And it reads thus: dash, between such and such a date and such a date, knowing that dash failed to furnish information pursuant to the Integrity and Public Life Act, did assist the said dash to escape justice by failing to provide the chairman of the Integrity Commission with the name of dash under his or her supervision, who was required to furnish information to the Integrity Commission. I am simply awaiting the names. Thank you.
So drop your mic, but turn it off, please.
Oh, sorry.
Well, serious now, boy. Any other questions?
Good morning, everyone. Trevor Brown, WINNMedia Family. Concerning the Whistleblower Act and the
Whistleblower Protection Act.
Whistleblower Protection Act and the Unauthorized Disclosure of Information, Official Information Act. How do those two acts work together? Can we get a short explanation on how those two acts work together without clashing? And what happens if a supposed whistleblower leaks official information unauthorized? What happens in that scenario?
So the answer to that question is really an analysis of the Freedom of Information Act, the Whistleblower Act, and the Unauthorized Disclosure of Official Information. So the Freedom of Information Act allows anyone, mainly the press use it internationally, to submit to information officers in respective ministries. So what we've done, we've gazetted the information officers for the respective ministries. So you submit a form to them saying this is the information that you requested. The Freedom of Information Act doesn't allow access to certain types of information. Let me open it so I can give some examples. So for example, exceptions, yes. So personal information for people, their blood type and that kind of information, public officials. Sometimes it's legally privileged, so cases in the AG's office. Commercial and confidential documents, so if a public body shall refuse to communicate information if the information was obtained from a third party, and to communicate it would constitute an actionable breach of confidence. So if the government is having negotiations with a company that's developed a modern technology to turn old vehicles into energy, for example, you can't get those details which would compromise the third party's confidentiality. So there's a list of exceptions in the Freedom of Information Act that the press and the public cannot get. Those are the same information in the unauthorized disclosure of official information that public officials cannot leak. So you have access to everything except this group, the press and the public, through the Freedom of Information Act, through the process in the Act. The unauthorized says, well, the public official who cannot disclose it, the public official who cannot disclose it formally, cannot disclose it to the back door, through the back door. Naturally, that makes sense, right? If statutorily there's an agreement on what should not be disclosed through the Freedom of Information mechanisms, there should similarly be protection against disclosure of that same information through the back door. So that's how the freedom of information and the unauthorized disclosure of official information work together. What the Whistleblower Protection Act does is, the whistleblower is a person who reports corrupt conduct or illegality to one of the official offices. So the Integrity Commission, the Ombudsman, the DPP, Special Prosecutor, there's a list in the Act. So if you, as a public official, see that there's corruption going on in your ministry or your department, naturally, before the whistleblower protection, you would feel that you would lose your job. If you reported it and you found out that, you would get disciplined. You would get sent to another unit or some sort of shifting to get you out of the way. What the Whistleblower Protection Act does, first phase, it's only public officials. Public servants. The problem is, as I had said in Parliament, we want to extend it generally to the private sector. But the difficulty we have legislatively is we do not have unlawful dismissal, or unfair dismissal. So even if there was a whistleblower in the private sector who blew the whistle, they technically could be fired by way of notice. They might be able to argue it's wrongful dismissal, but there's no great protection in the private sector yet. So we are now reviewing the employment laws. We're going to get that protection. So then when we get that protection in the employment realm, we'll bring the whistleblower protection to the private sector as well. So in the public sector now, you cannot be disciplined in any way. You cannot lose your job in the public sector if you blow the whistle. But to get the protections of a whistleblower, you have to report to the authorities. These are the authorities that are in charge of preventing corruption. So you can't just leak it to the press and expect the protections, because there's a mechanism now for this to be done through the formal, what we call designated authorities to blow the whistle. So that is how the whistleblower now works with the unauthorized. Now, if the information that you are disclosing is not privileged, sensitive, or confidential, technically you should not be leaking it, but it's not a criminal offense too. Right? So if there are 20 hogs on a farm in Connery, and a public official goes into the public realm or a town hall and says, there are 20 pigs on the farm in Connery, that is not privileged, confidential, or sensitive. So there's no criminal offense for that, if you understand what I mean. So, and okay, let me give you that same example. So if there is theft, for example, by an agricultural officer of feed from the agricultural feed storage, and it is delivered to the farm with the 20 pigs, that person could go to the DPP and say, DPP, I believe that there was theft by this person of the feed taken to the farm. They can go to the Integrity Commission and say, I believe that my director is facilitating the theft of feed to a particular farm. Right? And then it can go up the chain, eventually to the DPP, who can decide whether to charge or not. You get the whistleblower protection if you report it to the disclosure authorities. You could take it to the press because there's nothing privileged, sensitive, or confidential about that information. But why would you do that? I guess you might want to do that if you don't want to take there to be legal action. But there's nothing in the Unauthorized Disclosure of Information Act, Official Information Act, which creates an offense for that. I hope I answered your question.
I have a follow-up.
Yes.
Let's say the whistleblower does do the right thing and report to the official. Is there anything that can then strip that title of whistleblower from that person, that individual?
No, because under the Act, that's how the whistleblower is defined. As a person who reports illegal or corrupt activity to the designated authorities, which are the persons at the head table.
Good morning, everyone. Just a follow-up quickly.
Name and media house.
I just want to follow up quickly on the question surrounding the disclosure of undisclosed information. That's legislation. What implications are there should that information be given and then be published? Let's say, for example, a social media blogger, media entity decided to maybe publish a report on that specific information. Is there any implications, let's say, for the publisher?
Yes, aiding and abetting. If it's a criminal offense, so let's take the example I gave about the company that comes to the government of St. Kitts and Nevis with a new technology to destroy old vehicles and make energy. If then somebody in the Ministry of Sustainable Development releases the technology that does it, because the government needs to analyze the technology to see if what they're saying is true, and SKN Newsline, SKN Vibes, whichever media house, then republish it. I haven't prosecuted in a very long time, so I'll lean on you. But they could be aiding and abetting the unauthorized disclosure of official information.
That's correct. And if
Your mic, DPP.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said that's correct. And if they know that it's confidential information being leaked, then you could be charged as principal offender in your own right, as distinct from aiding or assisting somebody in committing that offense.
Well, where's the line drawn? So if I'm reporting on something that's happening, and again, I know you say if the person is aware that it's confidential information, but at what point do we say, because if someone is reporting to me that this is what's happening, and I'm publishing that, where is the line drawn that, yes, it's information that the public should know, but again, also, it's kind of ticklish on the other side of that.
No, I understand the importance of the press duty to report on important matters. I think in this particular circumstance, it would help you to ascertain first whether the information is in fact confidential information or unauthorized, information which was disclosed without authorization before publishing the information, right? But at the same time, the Director of Public Prosecutions, I believe, has a say in whether the matter is prosecuted. And it won't be a situation where, a report is made and there's a rush to charge. It will be considered carefully. They will look into issues such as what knowledge did you have at the time when you disseminated the information via the press. So the short point is, when the office of the DPP or I guess the police or whoever does their particular investigation, it's not automatic that there will be a charge. There will be a look at the different circumstances which led to the dissemination of the information. If you follow what I'm saying.
Sorry, Justice Lance wants to add. But Justice Lance, just before you start, I just want to clarify something. This is not going to be any guessing game, The legislation specifically identifies the information, and it's not a lot of information. It is very restrictive. Cabinet submissions. If you as a press house get a cabinet submission, should you be publishing it on your Facebook page or your website? Right? It deals with privileged legal information. Say there's an offer from the AG's chambers in an ongoing legal matter. Should you be publishing that? So it's not some guessing game by the press. Press has responsibilities too, legal responsibilities and otherwise. And it is clear within the legislation what falls within privileged, sensitive, and confidential information. Justice Lance, sorry. Oh, we welcome the commissioners from the Nevis Integrity Commission. Welcome. Not a problem, we understand.
I was about to expand a little bit to say that in relation to declarations that are filed with the Commission, the Act provides for secrecy and confidentiality. So we are not authorized to give out information that is provided to us. The Act says in Section 40, the declarations filed with the Commission and the records of the Commission in respect of those declarations are secret and confidential and shall not be made public. And there is a penalty in relation to if there's any unauthorized information that is made public. The Act provides for all of the penalties. So that information that we get, it is very secure. We have a secure server in the office, and the information is, unless a court authorizes us to make that information public, we cannot make it public.
Okay, a couple of questions. Next week there is a United Nations conference against anti-corruption.
Repeat.
Yes. Next week there's an international conference on anti-corruption in the United Nations. What other legislation or international regulations the citizen leaders need to adapt in order to further strengthen, and we already started to strengthen legislation against anti-corruption, but what other international regulations I would be expected to institute here in this for us to become more compliant when it comes to anti-corruption? To the DPP, you've been here just about a month, thereabout or more. Just give us a sense in terms of some of what you've been seeing on the ground in terms of cases, and we can't go into details on existing cases, but just give us a sense of what you've been seeing surrounding some of what you in your office. And back in Asia, we've been hearing a lot about quote-unquote corrupt practices by the former administration. Does legislation currently on the books, those legislation able to be validated, or some of the new ones that you would have instituted, be able to hold some of those quote-unquote persons, again, quote-unquote, was involved in corrupt practices?
Okay, I'll answer the last question first. DPP, if I can go first? Sure. Yes. A lot of people scared of you after today, so I have to be very careful.
I'm saying there's no need to be afraid, just do what the law says. It's your choice, do what the law says. Spend money on a lawyer, spend money on fines, endure inconvenience, it's your choice.
Yes, so to answer your last question, which was, I just lost it in my head. The last question was, oh yes, no. Corruption laws cannot be applied retroactively. There were common law criminal offenses for corrupt acts prior to the implementation of this statute. What this statute does is clarify. It doesn't eliminate all of the common law offenses that continue, but it clarifies those corruption offenses and expands it. The Integrity in Public Life Act, which was actually triggered, I believe, in Justice Act 2018, it was passed in 2013 in the House. It was triggered, meaning brought into law, not all of it, but partially brought into law in 2018. So there were some offenses under that legislation which existed since 2018. So for example, using public office for private gain or political gain were criminal offenses under the Integrity in Public Life Act by way of the, what's it called, the Code of Conduct. If you breach the Code of Conduct, those were criminal offenses. Some of those are still there. So that's up to the DPP to decide. What will happen though? The Whistleblower Protection Act will then protect the whistleblowers if they wish to blow the whistle on previous corrupt activity. DPP, what is the likely timeline, the expiry for criminal charges? Mike, your mic.
You have to look at the different legislation. Like for example, under the Integrity in Public Life Act, the limitation period there is like 5 years. So it may vary from legislation to legislation. Generally, if it's a summary offense, and when it's a summary offense, an offense which is triable only in the magistrate's court, it's 6 months from the date that the matter arose. So just to piggyback.
What about the common law?
The common law?
Common law offenses.
If it's indictable, there's no time period. Or if it's hybrid offense, tribal, both summarily or indictable, there's no time period. Everything depends on what the legislation says, primarily in the first instance, and thereafter, as I said. But I just wanted to piggyback on something the Attorney General said with respect to retroactivity of legislation. Retroactive criminal offenses are prohibited by the Constitution, so also are retroactive penalties. So for example, if you had an offense, let's say abuse of office, that existed in 2018, and the penalty was 5 years, but in 2021 it increased to 10 years, and you're charged in 2021 for something that happened before that particular amendment took place. You can't be subject to that greater penalty. You have to be subject to the penalty that existed at the time.
You can answer your question as well, while you're on the mic.
To answer my question, I honestly think if you wanted to find out what I have seen since I've been here, we're not going to finish this press conference. But from the corruption standpoint, well, I'm not saying corruption, strictly speaking, but from a good governance standpoint, I've taken an active role in terms of looking at matters which cause concern, or I think ought to be cause of concern in the Federation. I can use one particular example. One of my juniors had brought to my attention of a particular matter which, a part of it I had to withdraw in the magistrate's court. It had to do with the importation of what appeared to be ammunition. The ammunition came into the airport via a particular traveler, and the traveler, after the ammunition was taken away from him, he jumped over some turnstiles or whatever, he got the ammunition and he ran out of the airport unimpeded. That is of concern to me. In a country where the gun crime is so high. So I took the initiative to write to the Comptroller of Customs asking for a report with respect to that matter. He has not replied. So you can best believe that I'll be knocking on his door very shortly to find out where is your reply to my letter. That is one instance. There is another instance I don't want to say too much about, but I'll say generally like this. I see there is an issue with respect to, for example, police officers. Complaints have been made to me with respect to police officers not doing their duty when they're required to do their duty. There is the common law offense of misconduct in public office. And so far, with respect to matters which are already before the courts, I have been using that to supplement existing charges, because as public officers, we have a high responsibility, or an important responsibility to the public in the discharge of all public functions. So what I would say is, even if it comes to police officers, and I find that there is evidence, there will be charges coming forward. I note that generally misconduct in public office is an indictable offense. And if I may say, the maximum penalty for that is life imprisonment. But not everything will be worthy of life imprisonment. And I thought that there may be some instances where it may not be so serious, but it's necessary to make an example or demonstrate the importance of public officers doing their duties in a professional manner. So I've consulted with the AG with a view to having a summary offense, which can be tried rather swiftly. As you know, there is a delay in bringing matters before the court, and that is a matter of concern to me. I'm doing matters which are 4, 5, maybe even sometimes 6 years old. That is not good for justice. Justice must be done and must be seen to be done, but it must also be done in a reasonable time. There's a constitutional right to a trial within a reasonable time. And I have been speaking to the Attorney General with respect to making the necessary legal reforms to try and clear the backlog number one. And to make the system a bit more palatable, where litigants and, well, not say litigants, witnesses and complainants, can feel comfortable in it. The other point I want to make, and I'm wondering if we didn't make that point now. No, let's wait and see what arises. I don't want to say too much, but I'm concerned about the level of witness interference with matters. And again, I just want to say, if there's evidence, I'm not afraid. Put my name, sign your charge for witness interference. It must stop. I understand that persons who commit criminal offenses have realized that the Achilles heel of the justice system has to do with witnesses. Well, the Attorney General and I are speaking about creative ways to pass legislation to deal with those issues. So I end by saying a word or two to the wise is sufficient.
And just to answer, and just to answer the last question, the next phase for the Attorney General's office for legislation that will help to promote good governance is the procurement legislation. So what we intend to do is to tighten it up. That more so has to do with the public purse, protecting the public purse, because at the end of the day, what procurement is ensuring you get value for money. That process also relates to anti-corruption measures, because I'll give you an example, because I like to give real-world examples. We send out a request for proposals to demolish the old warehouse on government land to build a new Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs. So we sent it out to various contractors. They sent in their bids. They don't know what each other's bids are, so we got a range of bids. Most of them were around the same. One was an outlier, which typically happens sometimes. So how corruption could work if the minister was corruptible is to say, instead of giving the lowest bidder, right, which we've given the lowest bidder, give it to someone of the higher bidders and say, well, say the lowest bid was 100,000. And the other bids were 120, 130, 150, around there. Corruptible ministers would give the 150 and say, give me the 50 off the top. Mr. Smith, I don't like to quote neighboring islands, but I know your Prime Minister was on the radio talking about that. I think it was about 2 years ago. That is the primary corruption 101. Right? So once you control the procurement process and there is a strong selection process or method of selection of the contractors, then you don't have to worry about those potential corruptible ministers. You had many questions. We'll come back to you, Jermaine. Oh, and please stand when you're asking your questions and wait for the mic. Yeah. Can you speak a little louder, please, Moban? Yeah.
Earlier, Justice Land said that certain things were done in relation to a question. Is it possible to clarify what certain things were done? Or a better way of putting it might be, what is the process of filing and declaring? How do we get from the declaration of delegation officers in the ministries? Can take the files to the commission.
No, that's different. Finish your question, I'll explain.
Okay, so there is confusion that I need clarification on. So how do we get from there to possibly the DPP's desk?
Okay. So, in relation to the Integrity in Public Life Act, high-level government officials which are listed in the Act, which go down to assistant secretaries, K40 and above. K40 is a salary scale. So, we estimate is around, Mr. Edwards, around 200 at most. Those persons have to fill out a statutory document saying, these are my assets, these are my liabilities, this is my income for the past year. What the Integrity Commission does is they receive those declarations anonymously. And then every year, the senior public officials files another one. So they know that their first process is to analyze the first two. So, and then continue to analyze. So they take the one from 2023 and the one from 2024, and they look at them and they say, okay, well, this senior public official, say, let's say a director of a statutory corporation, had $100,000 in their bank account in 2023. They now have $1 million in their bank account in 2024, but there is no change in income. How did that happen? The director could say, they didn't put it in the declaration form why it happened. The commission could come to them and say, you need to explain this increase in wealth. They could come and say, here's my uncle from New York's will, where he left me $900,000. That explains, and the transfer of the money from the account in New York to my account, that explains how I have $1 million now, $100,000 there, and my income and my expenses didn't change. So that is part of the process that the Integrity Commission does. What we have done, and what the DPP and the chair of the Integrity Commission were talking about, is the first declarations. The first declarations are your baseline. So the public officials say, listen, this is my baseline. So for example, I submitted mine. These are my assets. These are my liabilities. This is my income. These are my pay slips. And you put all that information into a folder and you hand it over to the Integrity Commission. They then know, the first step is you try to meet the deadline. And what Justice Lyons is saying, there's a process. If you don't meet the deadline, you communicate. In Nevis, I'll give an example. In Nevis, Chairman Keynes, I think in your ordinance you have a provision that you have to publish the names in the newspaper, or is that done voluntarily?
In respect to the Nevis Integrity Commission, if you, when the time comes to file a declaration, if you are late, you can write in, we give you an extension of time, and if you fail to comply with at least 2 requests, we have then mandated by law to basically publish your name in the newspaper and the Gazette. And after that is done, the next stage is for us to take legal action against you to force you to comply, or to send a matter on to his office, or his office then take the necessary criminal action against you.
Yes. So that is the process. So it's a deadline, yes, but it's not. You're going to be prosecuted if you don't meet the deadline. It is a process by which they communicate. I'll give you an example. When I was in at a Caribbean parliamentary conference in the Turks and Caicos, they also have a very strong integrity in public life legislation. And one of the ministers was telling me that one of his colleagues got called by the Integrity Commission and was said, you did not declare your boat. And the minister said to the Integrity Commission, I have no boat. The Integrity Commission said, yes, you have a boat, you have not declared your boat. So it was it's a communicative process. There's communication, there's supposed to be. What ended up happening, his twin brother, the minister's twin brother, has a boat. So it was reported to the Integrity Commission, and that's why it takes all of us to do this thing. It was reported to the Integrity Commission that this minister has a boat. The minister does not have a boat. But the Integrity Commission then investigated and communicated to try and find out if it was so. So it is a process. And I want the general public to understand we are at the embryonic stages of this process. We're not going to get everything right away. What we have is the structure, we have the good people, the institutions, and eventually we will get it right. So things do not happen just like that, and it's perfect. But we have to aspire to perfection and hope we get as close as possible to it. So that is why the legislation is the first step. The institution, the setting up the institutions is the next step. And then we go from there and we try to have a fair, just society that prioritizes the common good over personal gain. Yes, Mr.
In response to Norman's question, what I want to emphasize is that, well, first of all, this is serious business. And you get the tone of the DPP.
And I think that runs through everybody. All right? So, people to comply. That's at the top. However, one is not going to inflict the authority of the law on people just like that. We want people to comply. We want to assist the public servants because it is going to benefit all of us. And so we want it to be a situation where we can work together. So our job in the first case is to receive the declarations. If we do not receive declarations, we'll ask you a question. We won't say, DPP, here are 6 names, here are 10 names. They haven't sent us declarations. And correct me if I'm wrong, Chair, but in our legislation, I don't think we are allowed to publish the persons who are non-compliant. We will publish those who are. So those who those who are compliant, we will publish them. We always send something back to them right away to tell them, well, we received your stuff and so on and so on, and eventually we'll publish those. But we are not allowed to publish those who are non-compliant. But the point is, we got to ask you a question. Deadline was so and so and so, we haven't seen it. If there's reasonable grounds, if there are reasons that are acceptable to us and so on, we're going to work with you. Sometimes we may get a declaration, and then after getting a declaration, it must be examined. And when, upon examination, we may find some holes. But this says that, where is the, where's the supporting information for that? And so we may have to go back to the person and ask for the supporting information. And so there's a process, and we will work with you in order to get it right. Okay? And of course, we will have to make it, that judgment call as to when is the appropriate time to call up Mr. Smith and say, we have some work that we would like to pass to you. But, I want to emphasize too, and it even goes to the matter of people reporting, whistleblowing, bringing information, and so on. Again, let's go back. This is serious business. So, reports about corruption or, acts which are not appropriate by public servants, these allegations can be frivolous. All right? It can't just be frivolous, because we're going to examine them and determine whether or not these are matters which we feel can be taken forward. And secondly, even things like the whistleblower protection, and emphasize whistleblower protection. It isn't a law which is advertising whistleblowing. It isn't a law which is intention to get people to start whistleblowing. I think it's to protect whistleblowers. Now, if the protection is going to be given to whistleblowers, here's the key. You have to follow the process. Okay? So, and I'm speaking to this because somebody asked me, and I heard a discussion one morning, the radio, and it seemed that people think, well, they got whistleblower protection, they got whistleblower act now, they don't want any protection. There's a whistleblower act, so there's this feel that you could just take up any information from in your office and go to the public and give it to the public, because I feel that it is wrong, and I could just give it to the public. And it's not quite like that. This is serious business. It can't be frivolous, and there's a process. It must be information that is considered confidential, that should not be given out. And when you decide to do it, then there are the people, there are the persons who you can whistleblow to. Okay, in order to do that. And again, in each case, we will examine the allegations and work through it, especially if the laws are going to be able to cover you and give you that protection.
Yes, I realize the DPP will want to say something. I just wanted to just clarify, add on to Commissioner Knight's point. The Whistleblower Protection Act says a person who purports to make a disclosure knowing its content it contains a statement that is false or misleading or reckless as to whether the statement is false or misleading, or is in bad faith, it's a criminal offense. So as Mr. Knight said, there is legislative authority for whistleblowing being genuine reports, not bad mind reports and reports based on rumor, but genuine reports to the disclosure authorities. DPP, the Ombudsman wanted to say something. Let him.
I think this forum, this conference was really needed, not just only to educate our citizens, but also to make public servants aware of the systems of government and how each of us are important, all of the arms are important in terms of this good governance. The reason why I said this, because my role as ombudsman has the scope of the prison is one of those areas that falls under my jurisdiction. And so many times I'm called by inmates who are sitting in prison for years on remand without speedy trial. And I'm so happy that I'm hearing the DPP saying that we are going to have these things improve. Secondly, the collaboration in terms of senior officers. And I just want to remind, because I have had conversation with the AG concerning this, that many senior officers think that when departments or, for example, my office write to them, that they can just look at the letter and ignore it. Just so as those senior officers are writing to other entities requesting information, we also have been empowered by the Constitution to investigate certain matters. I've been on the job here for about 9 months. And I just want to use this forum to advise some of our senior officers that you are public officers. The government is not your private business nor bedroom. And the reason why I'm saying this, sorry, because I have seen the frustration. Sometimes people come to my office at the last, they're ready, they're going on the street. And sometimes even my assistant is being attacked because of the frustration. So I just want to use this forum because it's needed that we all collaborate to make this work. It's all of us are involved. We need to collaborate. And so I want to remind those officers who think and are saying, you know, you write to them and they have to consult the AG's office. They're using your name to AG.
They name for everything.
Yeah, they have to consult with the AG's office. And so many times I have to remind them that you are the senior officer. Oh, they said, well, you have to write to the minister. I said, no, the act. And I make copies, I give them electronically and said, look, the act says that you ought to respond. You are the senior person and you ought to, if you need more time, we understand that. And so I believe that while we're here looking at this area of good governance, it is important that all of us collaborate because the country would be greater if we do that. Thank you.
Yes. I just wanted to underscore what Commissioner Knight was saying in terms of working along with the public officials who are required to who are required to furnish information. We realize that public officials are busy individuals. Believe it or not, I mean, I had started preparing my declaration around the end of October, and I didn't finish it until December One, because I had a lot of things doing and so on and so forth. But we realize there's a need for sometimes supporting documentation with respect to some of the items underneath there. And I thought that, I think the obligation to report is more important than not reporting at all. So, in discussions with the chairman of the commission, we said, look, if it is that you don't have the supporting documentation, you can put an estimate of the information, or what you think the information is, and you put on the form subject to verification. The important thing is we want you to file. And thereafter, once you've filed, the members of the commission will reach out to you with respect to getting that additional information which had to be verified. We're trying to let the law work in a pragmatic way rather than in a big stick way. And for the benefit of my Nevis counterparts who didn't hear the tone of the DPP before, I understand that you can print names of defaulters. Your DPP stands ready. As soon as you hand over those names, I've already drafted the charges. I've already drafted it. It's just a matter of putting in your name and signing it, and the different dates, and so on, and a charge is laid. I've already laid down the gauntlet. It's either you do what you're required to do, or you suffer the inconvenience of having to pay lawyer, inconvenience of going to court, etc. The choice is yours.
If I may, well, Mr. DPP, thanks for the encouragement. On Nevis, our Integrity Commission has been up and running since about 2018. We have been collecting declarations. Within the first 2 years, things were going smoothly, but we have now seen that persons have decided from the very top, ministers, permanent secretaries, assistant PSs, the whole gambit has decided that they no longer wish to file. We write to them, I guess they get the letters or the notices, and what they do with them I don't know. And unfortunately, the Nevis Island Assembly decided, I think maybe it was last month, they decided in their own wisdom last month to go in to Parliament and to further weaken the legislation by now saying that once you swear a declaration, the Commission is supposed to accept the declaration as truth, and then to add further insult to injury, they have now put in what we call the conjunctive clauses, where you file, the Commission will look at your declaration, and in order for us to then take certain course of action, there are almost 3 limbs that we must satisfy ourselves that the declarant has not satisfied in order for us to then, go further. And which is really, in the scheme of things, it's just stupid. And for an assembly with politicians whom we elect, who are supposedly, doctorates and the whole gambit, to look and say we want to fight against corruption, and at the same time you go in and weaken the legislation even further by tying the Commission's hands, it's just beyond the pale. However, we are there for another 2 years, hopefully, as under our appointment. And we are waiting for the third appointment of the third commissioner, because on Nevis, unfortunately, we have the situation where there is no leader of the opposition. And so, because there's no leader of the opposition, and the way the legislation is worded, a commissioner has to be appointed after consultation with the leader of the opposition. So the Assembly, again, through the parliamentarians, decided in their wisdom to make a clause, well, to amend and to say that the Premier, whoever he or she may be, will have that power to appoint the third person. We felt, as a commission, we got an opinion on it, and we felt that if anything, that power should really lie in the hands of the Deputy Governor General, after consultation with members on the opposition bench, and also maybe with consultation with the Premier, but that power should really lie in that person, ultimately. Since the Premier already has can appoint one person, the Deputy Governor General can appoint one person, and if there's that lacuna, you can, fix it that way. But also, too, you also fix the other pieces of legislation that requires the leader of the opposition to make appointments, not just to our commission, but to other agencies within this on the island of Nevis. However, they did not see fit to take the recommendation that was put forward to them, and they decided to do something else. We are still awaiting the amendment that was passed. I'm not sure if it has been gazetted as yet, so we will try to find out that and see where that goes. But unfortunately, instead of us going forward in a better way on Nevis, we are, unfortunately going backwards, because the federal legislation did not call for supporting documents. When the amendment was done, it was included. And on the other hand, on Nevis, we are saying, well, if you want to submit, you submit. If you don't want, you don't. So how is a commission to investigate? I mean, you get declarations, and on the face of it, you look and you're saying, well, okay, this declaration is good. So, I mean, it just makes nonsense of the law. But we will try our best to do what we have to do, and we will definitely be knocking on the door of the DPPs. I'm glad you have this stuff already prepared, the forms, and so we will definitely be seeing the charges. So we'll be seeing you very shortly. Thank you.
It's Charles, here's Hazel, and Mr. Bat, and okay, I'll make it 3, just because. Okay, I'll let you all ask the questions, and we'll take notes and then respond. Please stand and give your name and your media house.
My name is Michelino. My name is Michelino Charles Hazel. I'm a civil citizen. Thank you, Mr. Lake, for listening to the radio show. I promise you we'll continue the discussion, and we appreciate you listening on it. Regarding the Integrity in Public Life Act, question number 1. If and how it is pertinent to aspects of integrity beyond outright corruption, for example, neglect of duty or abuse of power. If and how it is pertinent to public office holders beyond elected officials, such as appointed directors of statutory body, CFPC, NHC, and permanent secretaries and other senior officers in the public service.
Again, Glenn Bart from SK Newsline. I need some clarification with regards to the declarations, and if, for example, at the point where it is determined that an elected official has contravened the laws through some kind of corrupt act or actions, at what point is Parliament involved in terms of being informed, or at what point can the public or the media gain access to that information to say, okay, one of our public officials has gone astray? I need some clarification on that, because as it is right now, you're saying that you have no authority to disclose information that you have received by declarations. So if there is a major finding at some point that says this public official, or especially the elected officials, might have done something extraordinarily wrong by law, at what point can the public be informed? Because you're saying that you can't disclose it. Well, does that mean you can't disclose to Parliament either? Or you can't disclose to the media, or you can't disclose it to the general population? Because if that is the case, then it makes a mockery of the whole situation. If the people who elected these officials cannot be informed. Okay? All right. The second thing is with regards to the Ombudsman. In the Freedom of Information Act, you just made a statement there that you write to certain people and they ignore you. So if a media house, for example, makes a request to a ministry or the department, and at some point it feels, well, listen, they're also ignoring us. We come to you then for assistance. What is your level of authority to enforce compliance of these ministries or departments to respond to the media or to the public who is requesting that information?
Last person, 2 questions quickly. An update on witnesses in witness protection. We understand that persons, after a certain amount of time, they are left up to whatever, and whatever happens to them happens to them. Persons are injured, sometimes killed. And we spoke earlier about this is all of us, and all of us, general public, should contribute in whatever way we can to anti-corruption and stuff like that. Just how does that affect the ordinary citizen? If I'm a PEP worker, I'm making $300 a week. How does Honorable Tom Jones, for instance, filing or not filing, affect me, a $300 PEP worker, step worker, whatever? Why am I necessary in this process to help St. Kitts Nevis look good on the world stage or whatever? How does this affect me, a regular person?
I'll start with that question.
It's very simple. If $40,000 is given to a corrupt public official out of the coffers, that $40,000 cannot go towards paying for your child's heart surgery in the Cayman Islands. As simple as that. Corruption drains the treasury. If you then eliminate that drainage, you have more resources to help people more. So, if you do not spend $10 million on corruption or waste $10 million on corrupt projects or overcharging for projects, you can then fund the Child Health Assistance Program. You could fund free education at the CFPC. You can do things to help the most vulnerable people in the society. That is where the rubber hits the road, and that is why it's all of our business. Because it comes down to dollars and cents. It's not just about optics. Eliminating or reducing corruption gives more resources to the people so that they can benefit more from public services. That's where the rubber hits the road. With respect to the FOI, the Freedom of Information Act provides a timeline by which the information officers, so how it works is the information officers assigned by the PSs. We have the list already. It's been gazetted. So if you write to this person, they have a particular time. I was looking for, I believe it was 30 days. I was looking for the amendment to confirm, but I'll confirm the time after somebody at head table speaks. But they have a time within which to respond. If they do not respond within that time, you then go to the information commissioner. And then the information commissioner can then force them to respond. And if they do not, then you go to the court. So there are different mechanisms. So typically in the region, there are very many examples in the region. I think more so Trinidad. Trinidad probably has the most FOI requests than any of the other Caribbean islands. The press regularly submit FOI requests. And if they are not responded to, they to go to court. It's a very simple process. You say I've passed all of these hurdles. Court, I need you to make the order to get the information. So there's a mechanism, stages by which you can then get the information. A FOI request within the scope of the FOI Act. So there's ways, so you don't have to worry about asking, not getting, and then there's nothing you can do. There's a mechanism, information commissioner, and then the High Court if you need it. In relation to the question of, yes, the third question I think was for the DPP. In relation to your question, the Integrity in Public Life Act, I want to make that clear, is about finding whether high-level public officials, including PSAs, directors of statutory corporations, are hiding wealth gain. That is really what the fundamentals of the integrity in public life are. So that you're not taking bribes and getting that money, they can find it, then they can report to the special prosecutor and investigate and see where you have potentially got that money. Yes, integrity in public life is about, yes, that is about finding whether there was corrupt payments. The Anti-Corruption Act deals with the criminal offenses of corruption. But what your concern is more about abuse of power, neglect of duty, etc. That is the ombudsman investigates maladministration, which includes the abuse of process, neglect of duty. And if you believe that it is such a level which it amounts to misconduct in public office, you can then either go to the ombudsman first and then go to the DPP. So you see the DPP said that there's a common law offense for misconduct. So it might not arise to corruption or the offenses under the Act or corruption generally in common law, but it might arise to misconduct that is actionable. So what the DPP and I are working on is a statute that can define that sort of misconduct, which is lesser than corruption. So it's in that middle ground. It's above maladministration. So maladministration, which is like delays, not responding to people, misconduct, and then corruption. So in that middle ground, there will be a legislation soon that will help to codify the common law offense that the DPP spoke about earlier. Yes, Commissioner.
And there's still aspects of the code of conduct which are within the legislation of the commission. In schedule, in schedule too. So persons can still come, but you can see that is a work in progress, and that has to be a working together. But yes, and all those people who you're concerned about, chairpersons of statutory bodies and their assistants and so on, all of those persons are in that general catch net.
Okay, in relation to Mr. Bart's first question, you know, Mr. Bart, if somebody is being naughty when the charge is laid. So in other words, they have the Integrity Commission investigate, they receive the declarations, they investigate. If they find that something is wrong and they bring in the officer and they can't explain, the example I gave earlier, you have $1 million this year, you had 100,000 last year, you have no change in your income and your expenses. How do you justify it? And then they cannot justify it. Then an investigation is launched by the special prosecutor and they find out that you took a $900,000 bribe. Then the file goes down to the DPP and the DPP then makes a decision whether to charge under which of the offenses under the Anti-Corruption Act. So the press is not supposed to get into the deliberations. The press is supposed to know when there's actually prima facie evidence of a crime being committed.
This is in relation to a question raised by Mr. Bart. The Act makes provision for the Commission to investigate acts of bribery or allegations of bribery and acts of corruption. So how is that complaint made? They can do so, and at least 2 persons have done so. They can do so by writing a simple letter to the Commission, because there's no regulation which says how that is to take place, how a complaint is to take place. So persons have written letters and saying, want to make a complaint, but they are in fact reporting and asking us to investigate something. But they cannot just make the complaint like that. As it has been said before, the complaint has to be made in good faith. It cannot be vindictive, and you must be ready to support what you are, the allegations that you are making. Very well. So once we have that complaint or the allegation, we have to investigate. Now, I realize that the Attorney General does not really want the Commission to be involved directly in investigating. So therefore, there is where the special prosecutor comes in. because the special prosecutor will assist or carry out the investigation. And the defaulter or the potential defaulter will have to be given an opportunity to be heard. So a hearing has to take place to determine whether these allegations are true before we can reach to the point of the DPP making a charge about anything. So,
and certainly the person can be cleared. So this thing could be happening and the person can be cleared. Now, if that information was given to the public before that point, my reputation is already tarnished. You follow?
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful about that point that you ask about. When does it go to the, to the general public? When is it available? And usually it's when the DPP has laid that charge and whatnot, so then that's public information.
And if I may, on another closer point also, just to inform the press, the Nevis Integrity Commission took a few members to, well, declarants who were supposed to file to court. They said that they did not believe that the law basically applied to them, the ordinance. And His Lordship, Justice Thompson Jr., I think he just rendered a decision in the matter maybe about a week yesterday. Yeah. And so, if the press goes on the OECS Supreme Court website, you'll be able, in the judgment section, you'll see the judgment, and it's informative because I am certain what challenges were done in Nevis, persons will also be challenging the same kids, the Federal Integrity in Public Life Act also, as to who is a manager and who qualifies and who doesn't qualify. Because one of the things you will find, depending on how a person is named in their department, they will say, oh, I'm not captured. And so, persons come up with nuances and seek to, get themselves out. I'm a CFO, I'm not a manager. Really? So, but I'm just saying to you all, look at the judgment and inform the public out there, and that would be a good way of letting persons know that, things are happening.
There is a question from Mr. Bart that the Ombudsman would like to respond to, after which we'll have a 1-minute wrap-up by the panel, starting with Commissioner.
Yes, concerning the question asked, the role of the Ombudsman. Maladministration deals with bad, improper administration. And especially for those who are out there listening, because sometimes we hear these terms, maladministration, what does it mean? It means in delay in making a decision, bad, abusive, improper, not according to law. Sorry? Or policies, yes. I can recall, because I said we're just about 9 months, and because the office was closed for about maybe 7 years, so we really had to restart this office. We have had so far about 85 cases that have come in so far. The reason why I said this is not because we're not getting the response. It's just that sometimes we have to use the power of the office to let people know that we need information. For example, the Act gives me the right, the officer right, to inform the officer that I will be checking, I'll be coming for the information, or even just to do some sort of investigation within the department. I've had one case, and because the island is small, I don't want to say too much, but there was one person who was placed in a very uncompromised position in terms of her work. And with that, I write the senior person, I let them know, yes, I'll be coming. No response, no response, no response. So I decided I'm going to show up. And I sat in the office, and the one time the person going on, and I said, I need to see the file. I wrote to you, and I need to see the file. And then I said to the individual, you can be charged with contempt of court for not providing this information in the time requested. This is why the DPP is important. We have, and I'm sure we are going to be good friends. But what we don't want to have the heavy end of the stick. This is, because in my training as a mediator, I think that we ought to collaborate. We ought to get the information. And that is why I'm asking. So we have had so far, out of the 85 cases so far, we have about 60% of those cases already solved, where persons have received monies, compensation, whatever. You know, I can just, another case, one person was, they were told that they were not eligible for certain things, but when we checked the act supported it. So it means that the officer at that time did not check the particular act, and they were just making a decision on their own feelings. That is why this office is there, not just only to police, but also to validate. Because we have had cases where, when the information comes back, the decision was correct. And many times the person will say, well, I did not know. Thank you so much. I wish somebody did explain to me. And then the person feels, so, you know, really comfortable moving forward rather than having an issue over their head. The same way I'm going to apply that same principle to the Commission of Information, because those are the same persons. And just for information out there, the all government departments, public authorities, government boards, corporation, and bodies falls under the jurisdiction of the Office of the Ombudsman, and that is in both St. Kitts and Nevis. I'm hoping by the new year we could have an office set up there in Nevis, because I don't want, that's one of the things the OAS is saying that they do not want to see going forward, where cases has to be sent down on the boat. So we will have to have a presence there in Nevis. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Honorable AG, fellow panelists, members of the media. On behalf of the Nevis Integrity Commission, I would like to thank you all very much for inviting us to this press conference, and to echo the sentiments of my chairman, Mr. Keynes, that we are indeed grateful for the opportunity to share. The observations made are common, and we are in full agreement with the AG, the DPP, and our fellow commissioners here in St. Kitts. I would just like to say that from our observations, the Nevis Ordinance has been amended at least twice. The St. Kitts Ordinance once, and we noticed that there is a forward trajectory for the St. Kitts Ordinance in that documents were included in the amendments, required documents at declaration, while, as Mr. King said, on the Nevis end, they have been removed. And so our wish is that there could be some collaboration between the AG's office and the Nevis Legal Department so that there can be some harmonization of legislation. I think that is going to serve both islands well. Thank you very much. I concur with the sentiments of Mr. Newton, and so I'll just pass it on to Justice Lance.
The Integrity Commission is very grateful for the opportunity to attend and participate in this conference, coming as it does just one day before International Anti-Corruption Day 2023, which is tomorrow. I made mention before about the bolstering of the anti-corruption laws, and which creates the obligation for public servants to file their declarations of assets, income, and liabilities. We have some challenges there. We expected more persons to have filed by now, and of the 50 categories, we still have a lot of declarations that are outstanding there. We have written, we have discussed, as you have heard, with the DPP, and he had given us some ideas. We have written to the defaulting persons, and the result has been minimal, maybe just about 10 persons. So I don't know if I would want to say how many filings we have had thus far. It is not good. It is not good. So I would like at this point to encourage persons, public officials, to comply with the act and file their declarations. We take no pleasure in sending your names to the Director of Public Prosecutions. You have heard him. He is very serious, and he will be harassing us to send those names. And so we do not want to do that. We do not want to do that. So I'm encouraging the persons out there to file. We have filed. The Commission has to file. We have to file with the Governor General, and we have filed. So we are leading by example. Parliamentarians, most of them with the exception of 2, they have filed. So in a sense, they have led by example. Please, general public out there, file your declarations. By April next year, you have to file a second one. You have to file a second one. They have to be filed annually. So I am imploring you all to comply with the act and file your declarations. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Lands. Commissioner Knight, anything?
Just saying, of course, that I concur with the words echoed, made by Justice Lands, and just to say, of course, that I just want to encourage the general public, and this includes the press, because you have a big part to play in the whole matter of integrity in public life and in the fight against corruption. The lack of integrity really erodes society. We can have the best judges, we can have the best ministers of religion, we can have the best ministers of government, you name it, the best head teachers in school, the best chairpersons, unless we have women and men of integrity running these institutions, as we say locally, all follow. That is what is going to happen. And so we want the public to participate. This is something new for us. I myself have felt the pain of, just in my previous job, I operate still as an officer of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. I'm a court-connected mediator. I used to be HR manager for many years, and just trying to get information out of government to just facilitate my work. So it's just painful, and nobody seems to know sometimes even whether or not they're allowed to give me the information. I have to ask the boss. I have to ask, and then the boss said, well, I have to call down to and consult with the AG. What is this? You understand? So I'm saying that, yeah, when this happens to you, you have to shout about it. That you can leak to the press without worry that you went and you can't get information. But you're not doing it for spite, okay, or to hurt anybody. You're doing it because we want to make our country a better place. So please participate. Thank you.
All right, and just to echo those sentiments, compliance has been minimal, you said, Justice Lands. I would imagine by the end of next year, compliance may be maximal. If it's 100 outstanding, I don't know, that's 100 times $30,000, looking at uptake in the treasury about $3 million. The choice is yours, you know. We've been trying to work along with individuals. There's a defense of without reasonable cause. There's a reason why the strategy has been to write to you to indicate that this is something, and if you haven't replied to the letter, you're basically telling us in a, well, I don't want to say it like that, but you're telling us you don't care. But if you don't care, we have to now do our duty. And I will not be lax where that is concerned. You see, Director of Public Prosecutions is not subject to the direction or control of any person or authority. And if I have to do a duty, I will do it. I understand in the exercise of my functions, I will make decisions which people don't like. I may make a lot of enemies. One of my obligations, nowhere in my terms of reference says that I'm under an obligation to make friends here. My obligation is to follow the law as it is and let the chips fall where they may. Even while I was here, you might have seen me texting on my phone. Somebody is asking about wanting to file a declaration, right? We want compliance. I take no joy in carrying people's names before the court. I mean, if you're convicted, this is a conviction on your record. A conviction has implications for you in other things. Think about that. We're giving you the opportunities because we want to be able to say before the magistrate or the high court, wherever it may go, that we gave you a chance and you did not comply. So there is no excuse. Read what I'm saying. Hear me well. The charges are blank. They may be filled in another 2 weeks or so. Christmas is coming. You want to be with family, eating pork and all the other niceties. A word to the wise is sufficient.
I just want to give some information about the respective offices. The Ombudsman's office currently is operating out of the Integrity Commission's office, which is at Liverpool Row, Basse St. Kitts, but in the new year, it shall be moving on to Central Street, upstairs the electoral office. So you will see signage as to how you can go to see the Ombudsman. What's the name of your building, DPP? Former Clico building, the former Clico building upstairs. The Integrity Commission's office is located upstairs to the Lil Walwyn building on Liverpool Road, Basse St. Kitts. And the Nevis Integrity Commission office is situated at Rams Complex in Ramsbury, Stony Grove, Nevis. So just make it aware. We had this press conference because we are serious. It is important for us to evolve as a society and to prevent corruption and to bring good governance to our society. There is now the political will to do so. There is the legislative authority to do so. There are people in the roles, good people, who want to do the right thing. It is very important that all of us play our parts in making our country a better place. This is not about big sticks. This is about ensuring that our country is a better place. It is a better place when there's good governance, meaning there's transparency, there's accountability, there's equity in our society. And it's a better place when we eradicate corruption, which was plaguing our society in the last few years. That is the goal. The Prime Minister has instructed me on this path. It has the political support of the cabinet. We have the legislative support of the parliament. It is now a new day. This is a very significant day. And you have seen from the head table, these are all serious people. It is time for a change in our society, and it's our hope that this change will happen now. As I said when I started, all of the legislation, the Anti-Corruption Act, the Freedom of Information Act, Act, the Integrity in Public Life Act, the Whistleblower Protection Act, the Unauthorized Disclosure of Official Information Act are now in force. They are now all the law. It is time to act differently. If you were involved in corrupt activities before, it ends today. We are serious. We have to build a sustainable island state. We are competing in a world that is ever-changing. I was at a lecture last evening at the Central Bank, and one of the most senior economists in the world talked about how people are going to be losing jobs to artificial intelligence. We don't have oil, we don't have gas. All we have is our people. We are a small society, a small population. We must do whatever is necessary to maintain this beautiful federation of ours of St. Kitts and Nevis. It is important that we be efficient in what we do. It's important that we act in the best interest of all of our people. And these measures that you saw today, the conversations we had today, are important in the evolution of our people as a society. It is a new day, and we have to treat it that way. So I am prepared to have press conferences like this regularly so the press and our people can understand what we're doing. If we need to readjust, we're going to readjust in the better way. We're not going to retrogress. We have meetings. I've already asked the commissioners to have another meeting. We just did the amendments, I think, in March this year. The Integrity Commission has submitted potential amendments to make it stronger. I have no problem going back to Parliament soon to make the legislation even stronger. We're not perfect. We make little errors here and there, but we are committed at the Attorney General's office to bring the best possible good governance legislation to our people. That is our goal, and we hope that everybody subscribes to that goal so we can truly attain the sustainable island state that we speak about. It is not just talking points. It is real. For us to sustain our society, we have to be responsible, we have to be reasonable, we have to be true to good principles. And that is the hope and that is the goal of this administration. So I welcome everybody to support this goal. If you have questions, you can email me, you can contact the respective offices. Let us do this together. The press, you play an important role in not misleading the public as to what this good governance legislation is. I encourage you to read it. It'll be on SKNS today. Read it, understand, on the talk shows, talk about it in a real way, not a feelings way. Look at the black and white and tell the people of our country what this legislation actually means. And I'm very happy that I got the question. What does being in support of anti-corruption mean to the average man and woman on 4th Street? It means we save money from the Treasury so we can assign that money to benefit the most vulnerable people in our society. That is where the rubber hits the road. I'm happy that the press came out. I'm thankful to the head table. Thank you so much for coming. We're going to try to have this as regularly as possible because this is an important element of our governance structure. Thank you to everyone for coming out. Thank you for everyone who listened online, on radio, on social media. We are all in this together.
And there you had it, the good governance transformation.
We don't need a vote of thanks. However, let me extend heartfelt thanks to everyone for
in celebration of International Anti-Corruption
for being present here today. To those watching us and to all who are committed to the noble cause of good governance in St. Kitts and Nevis. Your presence and participation today symbolize our federation's collective effort towards a brighter, more accountable future. Thank you, and let's continue to work the betterment of St. Kitts and Nevis. Thank you.
We now bring you the headline news. The headline news is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, KDP Enterprises, The Grain,